What you're looking at is a map of states that I have outlined that a few weeks ago were in another video that I'd made where I had gone through state by state alleging why faithless electors might overturn the election. Well, being a good investigator and also being independent, you need to not be swayed one way or the other by folks that have a political agenda, whether on the left or the right, and look at the evidence as it presents itself. So I made the assumption that the electors in these states, the Republican electors in these states, were not as much in the bag for Donald Trump as Trump supporters would allege. So if I'm going to make that assumption, I need to go find some evidence, direct evidence that shows this. It also occurred to me that if I came to this conclusion, that I might not have been the only one. And if in somewhere in the Trump campaign they had also come to this conclusion, that it would show in their behavior that they might be attempting to do things to ensure the behavior of these electors, and so they can absolutely make it through December 19th and get inaugurated in January. So I went to look into Mr. Trump's appointments and see if maybe there were any favors being done or any attempts to get inside the politics of these states, and I found some interesting results. We'll start up in Michigan. Now, I know they were doing a recount up there, and to be truthful, I'm not a giant fan of recounts. The whole point of faithless electors is that you trust appointed electors to do the right thing for the country, regardless of which party they're affiliated with. So, what could Mr. Trump do through appointments to maybe grease the wheels a little bit for the electors in the state of Michigan, or perhaps curry favor with those that might have some sway with him? Well, I looked through his appointments and I found a woman named Betsy DeVos. Betsy DeVos is currently, and I don't want to misquote here, here's Donald Trump and his cabinet appointments, and we go down here and we look through them all, and we find Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, a former chairwoman of the Michigan Republican Party. Huh, that's strange. Of all the people he could have picked for Education Secretary, somebody from Michigan. Circumstantial, yeah, but let's keep going. Let's see if we find anything else that might be strange. Go back to our map here. A lot of people thought Alabama, wow, that's a red state. Boy, that's really strange. What could possible evidence could we see that maybe he was worried about Alabama? Well, let's go back to our list here, and let's go back up here, and let's see, who could we find from Alabama? Who can we find? Anybody from Alabama? Maybe, oh, wait, Attorney General Jeff Sessions is a senator from Alabama. I wonder if he would have any sway with the 9 electoral votes from the state of Alabama. Still, yeah, it's only circumstantial, but let's keep going. Let's see here. Let's go out here to Utah. Utah, that's strange. Boy, he didn't like Mitt Romney. Mitt Romney didn't like him. There's Mormon connections there all over the place. Glenn Beck didn't like him. Governor Herbert came out against him. Jason Chaffetz came out against him. Boy, he would have a problem in Utah unless, boy, called him not smart, and pretty much ripped him apart. But here we see he had dinner with him, and now he's being vetted for Secretary of State. I wonder if Mitt Romney still has any sway in Utah. Hard to say. Really hard to say. I don't know, guys. What do you think? Indiana. Well, that's pretty simple. 2 words. Mike Pence. Done and done. So there's 4 states where we can see some kind of cloudy, foggy connection. you would also have to make the allegation that, somehow the Republican electors themselves, are not Trump supporters or don't like Donald Trump. Where could we find proof of that? Well, here we go. Trump campaign, Ohio GOP won't even party together. And if you go read down for this article, and of course it's gone now, this article, and I read through it, it was here a minute ago, basically stated that they absolutely loathe each other. And you can look this up on your own, you don't have to trust me. The GOP, the official GOP in Ohio, had endorsed John Kasich, and didn't like him, didn't like Trump, and didn't want to have anything to do with him. And you can look up this headline on your own. Don't trust me. Do your own homework here. So, there's also this other little issue with Trump saying that he's going to leave his businesses to focus on the presidency. And he's going to have a, quote, major news conference on December 15th. That's strange. 4 days before the meeting for the Electoral College, he's going to discuss separation from his various business interests. Well, why would he have to do that? I mean, we elected him as a businessman, didn't we? Yeah, there's this. Now, this is a lawyer who served both President Obama and George Bush. And lo and behold, there is actually a provision in the Constitution that prevents him from having businesses overseas and taking money for them and also being president. And you can look that up on your own. So, strangely enough, this is said, and this is put out by a very prominent lawyer, and then magically he makes this announcement that he's going to divest himself of the businesses that supposedly were not a conflict of interest, but now are. So, anyway, folks, the circus goes on and on and on. As far as these other states goes, I'm going to continue to look into Missouri, look into Tennessee. There's some issues in Kentucky as well, and maybe some of you can do some homework for me. When I went through his list of appointments, the state of Kansas kept coming up over and over and over again. And I don't know why. And I'll admit that. I don't know why yet. Maybe some of you out there have more information than I do. So, there are some very strange things. One last thing I wanted to cover in his appointments, when we talked about draining the swamp and talking about all the problems in Washington, D.C. and cleaning it up, and that's what he ran on. And Steve Bannon, his #1 chief advisor, is a former Goldman Sachs banker. Look who his Treasury Secretary is. Can you folks read what that says there? The former Goldman Sachs executive has deep roots in Hollywood and no government experience. Gosh, I wonder how he got that appointment. Yeah, here's one of the connections to Kansas, Elaine Chao. She's the wife of Mitch McConnell. And that's the connection to Kentucky that I think folks should look into. Tom Price, a man from Georgia. There was an elector in Georgia that said he wouldn't vote for Trump. Here's a billionaire, Wilbur Ross. We covered Betsy DeVos, Nikki Haley. I actually like Nikki Haley, to be truthful. She came out against the man, and she's kind of been her own person in a lot of different cases. So, Ben Carson, I don't even know if he's going to accept the appointment. Mike Pompeo, okay, representative from Kansas. Jeff Sessions, Mike Flynn goes back. He's a loyalist. He's been there a long time. Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican National Committee, really, chief of staff. We've covered Steve Bannon. His choices for Secretary of State, Bolton, that's normal. Senator Bob Corker from Tennessee, I just saw that. That might be our Tennessee connection. Giuliani's a loyalist. Governor Kelly, General Petraeus, Mitt Romney, Defense Secretary. Let's see, here's a guy from Arkansas. I don't know if that has anything to do with anything. John Kyle. But anyway, folks, do your own homework on this guy. Look at his appointments, look at his behavior, and then go and correlate that with the statements and behaviors of people in the Republican Party. And if you do this for yourself, I think you'll come to the same conclusion I has. Here we go. Agriculture Secretary Sam Brownback, Kansas. Again, Kansas. Comes up. It's just very strange to see that state. Chris Kobach, Kansas Secretary of State, Homeland Security Secretary. Over and over again, we see Kansas coming up in his appointments. You have to wonder what's going on there. You really do. So, anyway, just wanted to keep people up to speed on the progress of the investigation. So, anyway, God bless. Merry Christmas.